The Minnesota Democratic Party has taken the very unusual step of taking back their endorsement of a candidate. The reason, well, I don't think you're going to be shocked by this one, but Omar Fateh apparently, well, he's a Democratic Socialist, and that's no bueno in the Democratic Party. Omar Fateh was elected last month by the delegates at the Minneapolis convention for the Democratic Party, known in Minnesota as the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. He was elected to receive the party's endorsement for mayor over the much better funded two-term incumbent Jacob Frey. Or is it Fry? I'm not entirely sure. Now, in an argument that seems to me to be quite reminiscent of the very, the DNC co-chairmanship being taken away from David Hogg, the party is claiming that Fateh only won because, there was an error and we need to redo this whole thing because, Frey, he didn't get his, or Fry, didn't get his delegates to be counted, so we're just going to have to redo this, democracy and all. Now, here's the thing. There was a malfunction in the electronic voting system that day. This is true. The final tally of the 577 counted votes had Fateh winning with about 43.8% of the vote and Frey with 31.5%. However, there was a number of ballots that apparently did not get counted. Okay, so that's why they did a second ballot. So this second ballot obviously tried to bypass the malfunctioning system, right? And so they did so through basically a show of hands, okay? Pretty low tech, but hey, it worked. So now Fateh was elected through that overwhelmingly. So what's the problem there? Why are they taking this back? Well, Frey, or Fry, sorry, I don't know, how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. But he told his delegates to leave. Leave the convention before the second ballot. Now, that left only Fateh's supporters. Now, for me, I look at that and I'm like, hey, look, I understand that you might be upset about that, but you did tell your supporters to leave. Why did you tell your supporters to leave? And if you do that, don't you forfeit your spot? I mean, that would make sense, right? I'm like, hey, that sucks for you, man, but you did tell everybody to leave, and therefore you did kind of forfeit in the second ballot, so sorry. Sad day for you. But no, Fry complained, and the party decided to do an investigation. Oh, so now that investigation, of course, of the first ballot, or the first vote, did find that 176 ballots in the first round of voting were not counted. Now, it also denied the entry of a third candidate, Dwayne Davis, on the second ballot. So, okay, that first ballot, that was messed up. That's pretty clear. So that's why they, of course, did a second round. That second round had no irregularities because it had no voting machines or anything like that. It was just a raise your hand. Okay. Now, Fateh won that because Frey's delegates, gone. Now, they weren't forced to leave. They did it anyway. I think that makes it so that they gave up their chance to vote. And again, he won the first and he overwhelmingly won the second. And so, and by the way, those 176 ballots didn't necessarily mean that Fry would have won. Maybe it would have been closer. Maybe it wouldn't have. I don't know. But obviously, that result was not allowed to stand. The DFL on Thursday announced that it made the decision to vacate Fateh's nomination. As a result, access to the party voter rolls, which usually only goes to the candidate endorsed by the DFL, will now be given out to everyone, potentially splitting the vote and perhaps even hurting Fateh's chances. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that will actually happen, if it will hurt Fateh, but you can be sure that it seems like it did. It will. Look, Representative Ilhan Omar and about a dozen other DFL state and local officials released a statement that condemned the party's decision on this to strip Fateh of his nomination, saying last month thousands of caucus goers and delegates across Minneapolis gathered to participate in a Minneapolis DFL convention. Now, a month later, a small group of DFL board members, a majority living outside of Minneapolis, met privately to overturn the will of Minneapolis delegates who had volunteered, organized, and participated in a months-long DFL process. It is inexcusable to overturn the result weeks after the convention because the board members did not like the outcome. Not only does this decision set an extremely dangerous precedent, but it will undermine the DFL endorsing process going forward and fail to center the will of delegates. Zach Lindstrom, the mayor of the St. Paul suburb of Mounds View, who served as the sergeant at arms during the convention, added Fateh is getting screwed. It was clear, crystal clear. Fateh had the vast majority of support in the room. His supporters filled 2 entire sections. Frey's didn't even fill 1. I saw with my own eyes someone who clearly had the room, and for him to get rugged is just another reason the party approval is at an all-time low and hemorrhaging support. Yes, look, this is, to me, another example of the party establishment pushing back against their leftist candidates. Fatah's campaign, like Mamdani's, had been focused on affordability for working people. For example, he'd been pushing for the city to introduce rent control and investments in affordable housing paid for by taxing the rich. That sounds good to me. He also called for the city to raise the minimum wage to about $20 an hour. He also called to defund the police. He said that the city's overwhelmed police department should divert calls to non-police responders who are better trained to handle issues related to mental health, homelessness, and drug use. That's what defund the police actually means. So there's a lot of people out there who completely misunderstood, and still do, the defund the police movement, what that actually means. So what it means is that, I mean, you're basically taking the excess money out of the police department that they use to militarize themselves by APCs and Bearcats, right? Why does your police department need that? Okay. And why send an overly militarized police force to deal with someone having a mental health episode? That shouldn't be their job. The police's job is supposed to be to deal with criminals, right? Well, being mentally ill is not a crime, as far as I know. Potentially harming yourself in the middle of a mental health episode, that's also not a crime. And look, I understand that they can pose a danger to other people. I'm not blind to that. But here's the thing. You have people that work in nursing homes and high behavioral homes that deal with this stuff, mental health episodes, people harming them, possibly harming themselves and possibly harming others. They deal with that all the time. And guess what? They do not need guns, tasers, or billy clubs to be able to do it. It's about de-escalation. And that's it. That's what it should be about. That's why defund the police makes sense. And look, I think a good compromise, right, for the people who are concerned, like, what do you mean? You're going to send a social worker out there? First of all, you're massively undercutting, the work that social workers actually do, because they go into these situations already. But anyway, I'll compromise here with y'all. Send a social worker with a police officer escort to provide security for non-police responders, just in case things might get out of hand, just as backup. Maybe that would work. But anyway, look, Fateh ran his campaign on those issues, and also by criticizing the Democratic establishment that he says is personified by Frey. In fact, Frey has received substantial support from the real estate and restaurant industries, giant corporations, big corporate donors, the owner donors, all right, that really don't want any sort of change. They don't want rent controls. They don't want higher minimum wages. Okay. And look, according to the Minnesota Star Tribune, despite having fewer individual small dollar donors, Frey has gotten a war chest of over $539,000, which is about 8 times the size of Fateh's. So Frey is being massively funded by wealthy donors who have been likely giving it to the We Love Minneapolis PAC that supports Frey. In fact, they have been accused of illegally coordinating campaign expenditures with the Frey campaign. So they might be breaking campaign finance law. Oops. But anyway, the establishment, from everything that's going on here, the establishment clearly does not want Fateh to win. They are fearing that he will be another Zoran Mamdani. They are absolutely desperate right now to crush any insurgent leftist candidates, which is really sad to see because, look, Tim Walz, I like Tim Walz, but he does not support Fateh. He supports Jacob Frey, which is incredibly disappointing because on a lot of policy issues, at least surrounding the issue of affordability, it seemed like Walz would be more in line with Fateh and not Frey. I don't know what the deal is on that one, but it is incredibly disappointing. It is disappointing. Now, getting back to Omar and her statement, the DFL's decision, she says, demonstrated the clear tension between the progressive Democrats who are challenging the status quo and the moderate Democrats, or the establishment. Throughout this mayoral campaign, we have seen the influence of big money in our politics. We know organized people beat organized money. Fateh's campaign organized and won the endorsement. This decision will be a stain on our party for years to come and damage our ability to organize for Democratic wins this year, next year, and beyond. Exactly. And look, this is the establishment clearly refusing to learn their lessons, just like the DNC co-chair fight, which, by the way, like, they kicked out David Hogg, who isn't exactly a radical leftist, okay? But he was calling for, hey, maybe we should have some new leadership, some younger leadership, you know, that might actually help us win instead of continue to lose to fascists. They kicked him out. They kicked him out. And not only is the establishment doing stuff like that, but they're also refusing to endorse Zoran Mamdani, who has a really good chance of being the next mayor of New York City. And now they're, backing, the establishment is backing, stripping Fateh of his nomination. I mean, again, this is a party, the Democrats are, that despite being extremely unpopular right now, which they are, and they refuse, even with that unpopularity, to change and to embrace populist, progressive candidates in the face of not creeping fascism, but fascism that is literally right here, right in our faces. Okay? They're refusing to change. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.